Hey everyone, and welcome to season 4 of Zoetic Chat. As you know, I'm Jan Mayfield, author, speaker, spiritual explorer, and long life observer of what it means to be human. Zoetic means of or relating to life, and this podcast has always been about life. Not the polished version we present when everything makes sense, but the life underneath it, the questions, the endings, the moments of recognition, the things we know before we can explain how we know them. This season begins in a very different place for me. For more than 30 years, people knew me through one particular identity. That work was real. It mattered. It helped people and it shaped me. But something can be true, valuable, and complete at the same time. There comes a point when the identity that once gave you your lifelong meaning can no longer contain the person you have become. And that is where season 4 begins. I call this space the longest hallway. It is the space between the room you have left and the door that has not fully opened. The old life no longer fits, but the new one is not yet clear. You may feel restless, lost, impatient, relieved, frightened, or all of those things at once. This season is not about giving you a prettier label or rushing you towards an answer. It's about what happens when you stop performing an identity that has become too small. When you recognize the roles that you have outgrown, when you question the stories that have quietly directed your life, when you start waiting for permission, and when you begin meeting the person who has been forming underneath everything you thought you had to be. I will be sharing what I have lived, what I am still discovering, and the questions that may help you recognize your own hallway. There will be spirituality here. There will be source, God, intuition, and the unseen. But we will bring all of that into the reality of being human, into our choices, our relationships, and our bodies, our work, and the lives we are actually living. This is not a season about escaping your humanity. It's about inhabiting it more fully. If something in your life has ended, even if nobody else can see it yet, if you can no longer tolerate what you once accepted, if you know you are changing but cannot yet name who you are becoming, season 4 is for you. Welcome to Zoetic Chat. Welcome to the hallway. Hey everyone, and welcome to Zoetic Chat. This is the first episode of season 4, and I want to begin with the moment many people dismiss because nothing appears to be dramatically wrong. The life you have built still works, but it no longer fits. I'm quite emotional at the start of season 4 because I know that it's a very, very special season, and I've got so many special things happening in my life. So this is a difficult truth to admit. It would be easier, if everything had collapsed, if the relationship had ended, if the job had disappeared, if the children had left home, if the illness had forced a decision, or someone had closed the door for you. When something is clearly broken, you are allowed to leave it. But what happens when it's not broken? What happens when other people still think you are successful, capable, fortunate, or settled, but something inside you has already moved? This is the completion nobody sees. So for more than 30 years, I worked under an identity that people recognized. It wasn't false, and I didn't invent it, and I do not regret it. I stood in rooms, spoke to people, held their grief, answered their questions, and trusted what came through to me. That work mattered so much, and I thought it would be with me for the rest of my life. I'm sure it will, but in a different way. But slowly I began hearing the question, underneath the question. Someone would ask, does this person still love me? And I wanted to ask, what are you having to abandon in yourself while you wait for someone else to decide your value? Let me say that again. What are you having to abandon in yourself while you wait for somebody else to decide your value? Someone would ask for certainty about what would happen next. And I wanted to ask, what do you already know but feel you need permission to act upon? The old way of working began to feel too narrow for what I could see. Nothing was wrong with the room. I had simply outgrown it. And that distinction really matters because it's me, human me, that's changed. We often remain somewhere long after it is completed because we believe we need evidence that it has become bad. We wait for betrayal, failure, conflict, or exhaustion to give us the defensible reason to change. We build a courtroom case. We explain why the job is unbearable, why the relationship is impossible, why the commitment is unfair. We gather evidence because this no longer fits me, does not feel like a sufficient reason. But completion doesn't always arrive as a disaster. Sometimes it arrives as an irritation, sometimes as restlessness, sometimes as boredom with conversations you once enjoyed, sometimes as a physical heaviness when you imagine continuing for another year and another year, even another month sometimes, and sometimes as energy that returns the moment you imagine something different. Sometimes as energy that returns the moment you imagine something different. So you have to understand that gratitude and completion can coexist. And one of the reasons we resist this recognition is gratitude. We tell ourselves, I should be grateful. Other people would love this life. I worked hard to get here. People depend upon me. Who am I to want something else? But gratitude, is not a life sentence. You can be grateful for what a chapter gave you and still know the chapter is over. You can still love someone and know the relationship must change. You can value the work and know you are no longer meant to do it in the same way. You can honor the person you have been without asking her or him to carry your entire future. Contradiction doesn't always mean confusion. Sometimes it means more than one truth is present. I can say that life mattered, and I cannot continue living in the same form, and both can be true. Both are true. Both have been true recently. Let's just pop into the hallway. The difficult part is that recognition does not immediately reveal the next answer. You know what is complete, but no, not what will replace it. And this is where people get stuck. They become stagnant. They know it's completed, but they can't see what's coming next. And this is where major trust happens. But that is the hallway. The mind hates the hallway because it cannot control it. It wants a title, a plan, a date, a guarantee. It wants to leave one room and walk directly into another, fully furnished, with the lights on, with the food on the table, ready to eat. Life rarely works like that. There is usually a space between, and this is the space you have to be careful in. It is that in that space, the old identity begins to loosen before the new one has a language. You may feel less certain than you used to be. You may wonder whether you have made a mistake. Lots and lots of scenarios will go through your mind, and you'll keep repeating those scenarios over and over again. You may be tempted to return to what was familiar, simply because you gave it a name, and it gave you a name. But uncertainty is not always evidence that you are lost. Sometimes it is evidence that you are no longer pretending. So the purpose of the hallway is not to punish you or test you, or to test whether you want the new life badly enough. It gives you time to discover what was genuinely yours and what belonged to the role you were performing. What do you want to take with you? What can be left behind? Which parts of the old life were true expressions of you, and which parts were adaptations for safety, approval, usefulness, or belonging? So I have a question for you. I want to leave you with 5 questions. I don't want you to rush and answer them, but let them follow you for a few days. Ask yourself, what has become difficult to tolerate? And also, what feels complete even though it is not necessarily bad? Number 3, where do you feel relief when you imagine change? Number 4, what are you afraid will happen if you admit what you know? And number 5, whose permission are you waiting for before your own knowing is allowed to count? Wow. Some of you will get those answers really quickly. They'll come into your mind and you'll just know. Others may take a little bit longer. Either is correct. You don't have to make that dramatic decision today. Recognition is enough for now. The first movement is not leaving the room. It is stopping the argument with the part of you that knows the room is complete. I'll just read that again, because I had to write this down because I kept forgetting it. It is stopping the argument with the part of you that knows the room is complete. Sometimes I have sentences, words, that I just don't want to forget or say them wrong, so I have to jot them down. But thank you for being here. In the next episode, we will look at roles that become identities, like the carer, the strong one, the rescuer, the responsible one, and what happens when being needed becomes the way we know who we are. So thank you so much. Thank you for joining me. This is Zoetic Chat, and I am Jan Mayfield. And until the next time, notice what brings relief, what brings resistance, and what keeps quietly asking for your attention. Hey, thank you for tuning in today. Your support is much appreciated. Please consider leaving a review, sharing on social media, and telling your friends about my podcast. You can also join my newsletter at janmayfield.com. Remember, take what resonates from Zoetic Chat and enrich your life with wisdom in all areas. And stay tuned for the next episode.